Hello, and welcome to episode 178 of Prog Review. Yes, indeed. And if you haven't read the description, I'm talking about Green Day, American Idiot. I know your minds are blown, but I'm doing this as part of this concept album thread that I've been whittling on about for, well, what seems like months now. Don't worry, we're getting there. We are, trust me. So Green Day, American Idiot. It's released on the 20th of September 2004, and this is the 7th studio album from the American punk rock band. Their previous album, the folk-infused Warning, was considered a bit of a commercial failure for them, so the band reconvened 3 years later in mid-2003 to record its follow-up, which was going to be called Cigarettes and Valentines. But unfortunately, after recording 20 or so songs for that record, the master tapes were stolen. Someone had them away into the night, and the band were left with the decision to either re-record the album, from scratch, or just move on. Now, after a period of reflection and honesty, they realised that maybe Cigarettes and Valentines wasn't their best work after all, so they began working in earnest to record a better album. Bassist Mike Dirnt was in the recording studio recording a 30-second song, a little snippet of a song, all on his own, when his bandmates heard what he was doing and decided to follow suit and do the same. And so they began to stitch little bits of song together to create the very first song suit for American Idiot, this album. It was called Homecoming, and it was the first song that they recorded in that format. And then after that, they moved on to another suite called Jesus of Suburbia, which is the second track on the album. The band, they took their cue from concept albums by The Who, and were also inspired by musicals such as West Side Story and Jesus Christ Superstar, but I'll talk about that later. Now, the story of the album itself concerns a character called Jesus of Suburbia, yes indeed, and his general distaste of his hometown and the culture around him. That's the that thing of like teenage angst that we're all supposed to have, rebellion. Ooh. The title song, which kicks off the album, is very much the political manifesto of this character. Now, he doesn't want to be a part of the right-wing, neo-fascist, alienated America that's being pushed forward by the mainstream media. It's a pretty strong song. I quite like it, and it's one I imagine caused a lot of upset to those folk out there who love to use the word faggot and commie a lot. You know what I'm talking about. Now, each lyric in the album is given a date in the inner booklet in the sleeve, and so it's as if they're taken from a diary. And some of the songs are actually given the location too. For example, Jesus of Suburbia is dated March the 3rd and given the location Jingletown, USA, which the lead character is said to live. And that song chronicles his wishes to escape that life and move to the big city. And so we are indeed presented with the usual teen angst images of a person who's ignored by those around him or feels too alienated, to deal with his life, and, is essentially an outcast. These are themes that that tend to fuel rock and roll. The scene changes with the song Holiday as Jesus and his entourage move to the big city and try and find new meaning in their lives. Of course, the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence, and Boulevard of Broken Dreams paints a vignette of the underbelly of the city where every success is outweighed by many, many failures. Despite being a bit overwrought and melodramatic, it's probably the strongest song on the album, or at least a close tie with the title track. We're then introduced to the character of St. Jimmy, who's supposed to be a punk freedom fighter, but turns out to be nothing more than a drug dealer, selling his wares to placate those who are suffering, with their failures. And it turns out that St. Jimmy is in fact a different aspect of Jesus of Suburbia. They are one and both the same character. And then, that character falls in love with what's her name. The female character turns out to be kind of the antithesis of that lead character, and their relationship ends up souring to the point where she spurns him, and it comes to a point where St. Jimmy decides to, kill himself. Well, metaphorically kill himself. And this leaves Jesus of Suburbia broken and ready to, return home to pick up his life. And the album ends with him reminiscing about what's her name and the events that happened that year in the city. It's kind of played over almost a year. That's the story. Now, what I find interesting about this album is you can draw direct parallels between this and Quadrophenia by The Who. Both protagonists share the same name. They share feelings of alienation, want to escape suburbia. They use drugs to remove themselves. They have an idol. They also deal with the concept of a split personality. In Quadrophenia, this clunky conceit brings, it's four personalities, to bring in the four personalities of the band, The Who. Whereas in American Idiot, the Jesus of Suburbia character reinvents himself as St. Jimmy, the drug dealer. And there's also the themes of suicide, rebirth, and that sense that you can't really escape who you are. Now, musically, I found the album quite tiring. This is a young man's record, and Green Day on this record tend to play it at one pace, and it is a breakneck speed, which is a bit of a shame because we know that they can musically stretch themselves to other styles, and it's not beyond their musical ability to throw in a decent ballad or two, like Wake Me When September Ends. I think more light and shade would have improved the whole feeling of the album, but it is impressive that the band puts in 2 9-minute suites on this album, which kind of makes them like kind of punk prog almost, but I do find it admirable that a band like Green Day should embrace the concept album and produce a work that is so sturdy, that makes a statement of these times, as well as telling an age-old story. So it is a universal story they're telling, and it works and follows the criteria of a good concept album, with the lead character embarking on a journey of self-discovery and redemption once more, like so many of these characters in concept albums do. And I would actually go as far to say that this is actually a tribute to the concept album. I think that they hold I think the reason it works so well is they hold concept albums and musicals in such high regard that they put a lot of work into this and crafted it so that it followed these rules, and it did indeed work. Normally concept albums fall over, they're too convoluted, the story's too difficult to follow, or doesn't make any chronological sense, whereas here they've really worked at it to make it work. Now, in terms of a rating, and despite my overall enjoyment, I'm actually going to give this 3.5 heart-shaped grenades out of 5. That's 3.5 heart-shaped grenades out of 5, because it does run out of steam a bit towards the end, and at nearly an hour in length it suffers from that fatigue that many modern albums are plagued with. There really is a good 45-minute record in there somewhere. There really is. I'm looking at the CD when I'm doing that. I'm not having a funny turn. There really is good 45-minute record in there somewhere. But don't let it put you off. If you've not tried Green Day, or you think that they're just a pop punk band, that's greatly unfair. It's got depth to it. It really has. And Billy Joe Armstrong, Mike Dirnt, and Trey Cool take the concept album in a different direction, but still tell that age-old story of angst and rebellion. The universal story. We were all young once. I know it's hard to believe. On the YouTubes, the cathedral to youth, I do believe. Anyway, my name has been Darren Lark, and I've been talking about Green Day's American Idiot, which is a concept album. It really is, and it's a good example too. Thank you for being a patient and kind audience. Don't forget to do the social media stuff, the Twitface and the Google Plus, whatever that is. It's good fun. You can say hello, or you can abuse me there, and I'll block you. And I've got to do the next one. I don't know what's the next one. He says, looking around for his CD pile. What have I done with it? Are you there? What do you reckon? Bit of Bowie? Yeah? Bit of Bowie for the next one? Should we do that one? We'll make it a date. Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars shall be the next in our concept album thread. Be there or be square, I guess. And there's only one more thing to say, and you know what that is. Prog on.